Hello and welcome to Outside Views, where we take a look at the decisions shaping Britain and its role in the world. And today we're discussing a story that signals a major shift in the post-Brexit landscape. Britain's search for an EU negotiator as Prime Minister Keir Starmer pushes for a reset with Brussels. It's a development that reflects the realities of Britain's current relationship with the European Union. Strained, complicated, and in desperate need of improvement. What does a reset actually mean? And what is Starmer's government hoping to achieve? And how likely is it that the EU will meet Britain halfway? To understand this, we need to revisit the history of Brexit, examine the current challenges, and explore what might come next. First, let's consider why this move is happening now. Starmer's Labour government, elected in July, has made it clear that it has intention to repair ties with the EU. This is not about reversing Brexit. Starmer has repeatedly stated that rejoining the EU is not on the table. However, the realities of Brexit have left Britain in a position where improving relations with Brussels is not just desirable, but essential. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement, or TCA, negotiated by Boris Johnson in 2020, was presented at the time as a success. It was touted as a deal that would preserve tariff-free trade while giving the UK full sovereignty. In reality, the agreement was rushed, incomplete, and riddled with challenges. While it did eliminate tariffs and quotas, it introduced significant non-tariff barriers such as customs checks, regulatory compliance, and complex rules of origin requirements. And these barriers have disrupted supply chains, increased costs for businesses, and made exporting to the EU far more complicated than it was before Brexit. At the same time, the TCA left out key sectors of the economy. Financial services, a cornerstone of the British economy, were largely excluded, with no comprehensive agreement on access to EU markets. And professional qualifications are no longer automatically recognized, creating barriers for British professionals working in Europe. And data sharing agreements were only partially addressed, leaving gaps in areas like law enforcement cooperation. And these omissions have had real consequences. Businesses across the UK, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, have struggled to adapt to the new requirements. And exports to the EU have declined in many sectors, and industries that rely on smooth cross-border trade, such as agriculture and manufacturing, have been hit especially hard. The end of free movement has also created challenges for labour mobility. UK citizens can no longer live and work freely in EU countries, and EU nationals face similar restrictions in Britain. And this has contributed to staffing shortages in key sectors, including healthcare, agriculture, and hospitality. And against this backdrop, it's clear why Starmer's government is seeking what they call a reset. But what does this reset actually involve? The government has announced its intention to appoint a senior negotiator to act as a bridge between London and Brussels. And this individual will serve as a personal advisor to the Prime Minister on EU-related issues, including trade, migration, and security. And they will also represent the UK in the negotiations with the EU, acting as a kind of a Sherpa to guide discussions and build relationships. And one of their key tasks will be leading talks on a proposed security cooperation agreement, an area where both sides have a shared interest in collaboration. Another priority is addressing upcoming changes to EU border rules. The EU's new entry-exit system, set to take effect next year, will introduce digitized border checks and fees for travelers from non-EU countries, including the UK, of course. Negotiating adjustments to the implementation of these rules could help minimize disruption for British citizens traveling to Europe. However, it's important to be precise about what this reset does not entail. And while the British government has signaled a desire to revisit aspects of the TCA, the European Union has been clear that it will not renegotiate the agreement itself. The TCA is a legally binding treaty, and the EU is unlikely to reopen it for wholesale renegotiation. What is possible, however, is making adjustments to how the agreement is implemented. And these adjustments could include measures to streamline customs procedures, to enhance regulatory cooperation, and address practical challenges faced by businesses. For example, agreements on mutual recognition of professional qualifications could make it easier for British and EU professionals to work across borders. And improved data sharing arrangements could strengthen law enforcement cooperation. And targeted changes to rules of origin requirements could also reduce bureaucracy for exporters. But these adjustments will not come easily. The EU has little incentive to make concessions without any clear benefits for its own members. Brussels will likely demand commitments from the UK, such as alignment with EU standards in areas like environmental protections, workers' rights and state aid rules. And these demands could spark political pushback in Britain, particularly from Brexiteers who view any alignment with EU regulations as a betrayal of the referendum result. And the political challenges extend beyond Brussels. Domestically, Starmer faces the difficult task of managing expectations. For many in his party, improving ties with the EU is a priority. But there is also skepticism about how much can realistically be achieved. At the same time, the government must navigate public opinion in a country where Brexit remains a deeply polarizing issue. While some voters are eager for closer ties with Europe, others see any attempt to reset relations as an admission that Brexit was a mistake, which it was, by the way. Despite these challenges, the potential benefits of a reset are significant. A more functional relationship with the EU could help address many of the economic challenges facing the UK, from declining exports to labour shortages. It could also strengthen Britain's global standing, rebuilding trust with European partners and demonstrating that the UK can engage constructively on the international stage. And this reset is also an opportunity to move beyond the divisive rhetoric of the past. Brexit was framed as a choice between sovereignty and cooperation, but the reality is far more nuanced. The UK and the EU remain deeply interconnected, and finding ways to work together is in everyone's interest. And ultimately, the success of this reset will depend on the willingness of both sides to engage constructively. For Britain, this means recognizing the limitations of its current position and focusing on practical solutions rather than ideological posturing. For the EU, it means balancing the desire to protect its own interests with the need to maintain a positive and productive relationship with a close neighbor. But cherry-picking will not be part of this. So thank you for watching Outside Views, and if you found this discussion insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, let's continue the conversation in the comments below the video. What do you think about Britain's push for a reset with Brussels? Can these efforts lead to any meaningful improvements, or are the challenges just too great? Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and let's continue to question the decisions shaping our worlds. Take care, and the next video is right here in the end screen.